The U.S. Commerce Department has announced up to $874 million in R&D support for GlobalFoundries and 6 other companies. But the way I read it, the real story here is not the money. The U.S. has effectively declared that the next bottleneck for AI infrastructure is not computing power, but the light that carries the data. And on top of that, it is changing how taxpayer money itself is put to work. I see this as homework handed straight to Japan's own semiconductor policy as well. Welcome to Semiconductor News Decoded. I'm Tai, with 31 years inside the semiconductor industry, bringing you the real view from the factory floor. Today, we're covering the U.S. CHIPS Act and its R&D support for 7 companies. By the end of this video, you'll understand why GlobalFoundries, a company that supposedly stepped away from the leading-edge scaling race, walked away with the largest award, and what the U.S. government is really after by taking equity stakes alongside its grants. As always, let's start with a simple, everyday analogy. Here's today's news in one picture. Imagine a fast-growing city. We'll lean on this city and railroad analogy all the way through the opening section. Factories are going up one after another, and the amount of cargo they produce is doubling year after year. But here's the problem. The roads that carry all that cargo just can't keep up. No matter how many factories you build, if the goods can't get delivered, the earning power of the entire city hits a ceiling. For decades, this city's shipping has been handled by trucks. The trucks are still out there working hard today, but the more cargo there is, the worse the traffic jams get, and the fuel bills keep climbing. There's a limit to how much wider you can make the roads, and the voices are growing louder. Unless we change how we move things altogether, the city's growth is going to stall. That's where high-speed rail comes in, fast as light. Lay the rails once, and you can move massive volumes of cargo with no traffic jams and barely any energy. The city's future won't be decided by how many factories it has, but by how quickly it can build out this rail network. That's the conclusion City Hall reached, and it decided to make a major investment in the railroad. What surprised everyone was the company they picked. It was a somewhat low-profile firm, one that had let the big names win the race to build the newest, flashiest factories. But over 10 years, this company had quietly built something nobody else had: the ability to do everything inside the city, from manufacturing the rails to assembling the train cars, building the stations, and inspecting the lines after opening day. And City Hall added one more twist. Instead of simply handing over the money, it structured the deal to receive a small stake in the company's shares. If the railroad succeeds and the company profits, part of that return flows back to the taxpayers. From here, let me walk you through what this actually looks like in the real semiconductor industry. On July 29, 2026, the U.S. Commerce Department announced its intent to provide up to $874 million in R&D support to 7 semiconductor-related companies under the CHIPS Act. The targets span optical interconnects, next-generation memory, new computing approaches, advanced packaging, and materials, a broad range of technologies that make the AI computing stack possible. The largest proposed award goes to GlobalFoundries, the American contract chipmaker, a foundry, at up to $300 million. The funding will accelerate U.S.-based R&D on co-packaged optics, a technology that integrates optical circuits right next to AI processors, so that data can move at high speed while consuming far less power. Second on the list is a company called Kepler, with up to $245 million for a new kind of AI memory built on 3-dimensional structures and ferroelectric technology. Multibeam was slated for up to $140 million for advanced packaging that connects and stacks large numbers of chips at high density. And the list goes on. Probabilistic computing, low-loss insulating materials, counterfeit chip detection, and compound semiconductors. One thing to keep in mind, this announcement is not a final disbursement of funds. These are LOIs, letters of intent, and they still have to pass review and approval before becoming formal contracts. And here's the other crucial point. The Commerce Department stated that, as a condition of the funding, it intends to take minority, non-controlling equity stakes in all 7 companies. Out in the world, this news tends to get told as a money story, another big round of US support. But what I'm watching is the allocation. The largest award didn't go to Kepler and its new AI memory. It went to GlobalFoundries and Optical Interconnects. The way I read it, the US government has identified the #1 choke point in AI infrastructure not as computation, but as the part that moves the data. No matter how much GPU compute power grows, if the links that carry data between chips and between racks slam into the walls of power and bandwidth, the AI infrastructure as a whole simply cannot scale. The shift from copper wiring to optics is no longer some far-off research theme. It has become a practical, near-term challenge for expanding AI data centers. It's exactly our analogy, the trucks versus the high-speed rail. Because GlobalFoundries stepped out of the leading-edge logic scaling race, it's often seen as a company running processes a generation behind TSMC and Samsung. But in silicon photonics, semiconductors that handle light, the picture changes completely. This is a company that has spent more than 10 years building a manufacturing base that combines optical devices, such as waveguides and modulators, with the high-speed electronic circuits that drive them. The results of this program feed into Scale, the optical engine platform GlobalFoundries has announced. The targets are performance in the 400 gigabit per second class and up to 5 times the energy efficiency of the current generation of optical transceivers. They're talking about pulling development forward by 2 to 3 years. So the way I see it, this is not a simple research subsidy. It's a policy move to rapidly build out an optical interconnect base inside the US that leads all the way to volume production. So why GlobalFoundries? I'd argue the deciding factor wasn't a technology ranking. It was the ability to finish the job inside the United States. TSMC and Samsung are both developing co-packaged optics technology, but as of today, I can't confirm any plan by either company to run everything from photonic chips through final assembly inside their US plants. If you make the optical chips in America but ship them overseas for bonding and testing, the supply chain still isn't complete. GlobalFoundries, on the other hand, has explicitly stated that it will use its existing plants in New York and Vermont to move toward high-volume US production of silicon photonics. It plans to build an advanced packaging and photonics center that offers everything from assembly through test. Rather than being chosen for being the strongest in the world, it was more likely chosen as the realistic, independent foundry that can link the front end and the back end of optical interconnects entirely on US soil. And here's the thing. Japan rolled out major support for photonic semiconductors in the very same July. Tower Semiconductor plans to expand capacity for silicon photonics and related technologies in Miyako, Niigata, and Uozu, Toyama. And Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry will subsidize up to roughly 160 billion yen of the roughly 600 billion yen total project. But the money comes in a different form. Japan leans on grants. The US is pairing grants with equity stakes. To be fair, Japan has taken a step of its own with Rapidus. The IPA invested a total of 250 billion yen, structured so that the public sector also shares in the company's value if it succeeds. But this time, the US attached that approach to all 7 companies as a common condition. On this point, the US is one step ahead. If Japan is going to broaden its large-scale support into photonics and materials, I believe it should use the combination of grants and equity far more often. Let me wrap this up. The US identified optical interconnects as the choke point in AI infrastructure and allocated the largest award to GlobalFoundries, the company that can produce end-to-end inside the country. At the same time, it will take equity in all 7 companies, building a mechanism that returns the fruits of taxpayer-funded bets to the public. Sharp technical judgment on one side, accountability to citizens on the other. As a policy that achieves both at once, I see plenty here for Japan's future semiconductor support to learn from. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis, so if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.